Messiah Part 2. Maimonides, in this classical work, the whole discussion about the Messiah takes two chapters in which he digests thousands of items and brings out just a few to the fore. So Maimonides has said that denying the Messiah means you deny Moses. Where in the Torah does Moses talk about a Messiah? So he answers, it says here as follows: "And the Lord your God will return your captivity and have compassion upon you. And further, he will gather you from all of the exiles. If your scattering shall be at the edges of the heavens, from there God shall bring you, from there God shall gather you." Then it says, "And God shall bring you to the land, and he will make you better than your ancestors." So clearly, there is a prophecy here of a restoration to Zion, a restoration to Israel. But where in the verses is there any discussion about a Messiah? It only says that God will restore you to your original status. So I thought about this for a while and realized that God isn't just returning you to an address, he's returning you to the same status that you were holding before the exile took place. Just as before the exile took place, you dwelt in the Holy Land, and just as before the exile took place, you had a holy temple, and the Jews were concentrated primarily in this Holy Land, which had a holy temple, and just as then you had a king, and primarily the king of the Davidic dynasty, so too God will restore you to that particular status. So it actually goes into three stages. The first thing is that God will restore you. That refers to the restoration of the king, because through the office of the king, Messiah, he will establish the kingdom in the land of Israel, and from that point on, he will gather in all of the exiles from all the four corners of the world. And then he will restore the land to its original status. First, he will restore the people, then he will restore the land. And finally, after the people and the land have been restored, then the law of the land will be the Torah, as it had been before. And so those three stages, the Davidic dynasty, the restoration of the people in Zion, and the reestablishment of the Torah, are all part of this three-pronged program of God returning you. And so this is in the Torah of Moses. He goes on to say that even Bilam, you remember Bilam, the famous Gentile prophet who loved his donkey. So Bilam also prophesies in the Torah. And he says the following. He says, "I see him and not now. I gaze at him and he is not near." And he does this prose in several stanzas. And these are very difficult to understand. And Maimonides here gives us the secret of those verses. "I see him and he is not now." That refers to King David. "I gaze at him and he's not near." This refers to his descendant, the Melech HaMashiach. And the whole discussion, the whole prophecy of Bilam talks about the Davidic dynasty and its restoration. So you might ask, but wait a second, haven't we been told by the prophets of even greater things, that the miracles that would take place at the time of the Messiah will be greater than even when we went out of Egypt? He says, yes, that's true. But the initial state of affairs is that there will be a restoration of the old kingdom, of the kingdom of Judea. And what is the purpose of the Messiah? The purpose of the Messiah is the reestablishment of the Torah. And from that Torah comes everything else that we are waiting for.